hi there. Sometimes I think we get a little bit too serious or too focused on one direction when we do these readings. When they started out with the pandemic, it was thought, well, it'd be a great idea to do this daily reading every day from the Science of Mind magazine, keep people in touch with it. It would be kind of cool. And that my colleague, Reverend Lisa, in the mornings would pick a book or something, and she would read from that all the way through. And she's done a whole bunch of different books since that started. I primarily start with the Science of Mind magazine daily guides for each day. And sometimes I've varied that. For instance, I will at some stage during this month, I will read about Murphy, the human whisperer, the dog. Well, theoretically the dog. And then I thought, well, there's no reason why we can't go into other stuff as well, which might make it more interesting. So there's going to be a little bit of trivia sometimes. I don't know how many of you do, but my wife and I are avid viewers of Jeopardy. And while I do often know a lot of the answers, I can't get them out anywhere near as fast as the people up there. They got to do this buzzer and then get the answer out fast. And often the answer is in my head, but it doesn't pop forth until somebody's actually saying it. So my brain doesn't bring it back as fast as these. But I do have a lot of interesting stuff stored in here. And I thought I would just share some of it occasionally. For instance, the days of the week. I mean, how many of you know that the days of the week nowadays are 3 of them are named after Roman deities and 4 of them are named after Norse deities. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that's the Roman part. Saturn's day, the day of the sun, Sunday, the day of the moon, Monday. And then Tu, a Norse god. Wednesday, which is Woden or Odin, the chief Norse god. Thursday, right, which is the god of thunder. And then Freitag, or Friday, or Frigga, I think it is, probably named after Frigga or Freya, who was the goddess of love and so on. So there you are. That is some trivia for you. So 4 after Norse deities, 3 after from the Romans, and we'll get some more trivia as time goes on. So anyway, back to our series. What brought this on was because the title said, I am sky. And when I was thinking about sky, so I think about astronomy, I started to think about the days of the week. And then my wife and I just watched an episode of Ancient Aliens, Declassified, which was talking about the Norse gods. And that's where all this started coming back in my head again. So there you are. So this has got nothing to do with Norse gods. Well, not directly anyway. I am sky. First quote is from Longchenpa. I looked him up actually on Gemini, and his full name was Longchen Rabjam Drima Ozer, and he was a paramount figure in Tibetan Buddhism, and particularly within the Nyingma school. It's the Ault school from Tibet. So there you are. But what did he say? He said, since everything is but an apparition, having nothing to do with good or bad, acceptance or rejection, one may well burst out in laughter. Longchenpa. And Ernest Holmes, kind of more on our track, says, all human endeavor is an attempt to get back to first principles, to find such an inward wholeness that all sense of fear, doubt, and uncertainty vanishes. That's in The Art of Life, page 9. So when we realize our oneness with the divine, with everything, then fear starts to vanish. Now, Longchenpa was in the Dzogchen tradition. So this is what Reverend David says in the Tibetan Dzogchen tradition, the nature of mind is often likened to the sky. Vast, open, and fundamentally unchanging. Phenomena such as thoughts, emotions, And life events are clouds that pass through the sky. No matter how dark or turbulent the clouds become, they never alter the sky's essential nature. Then he says, Reverend David, not this Reverend David, the writer Reverend David says, this aligns beautifully with the science of mind teaching that our true identity is not found in the transitory circumstances of life, but in our divine essence. In other words, they're saying we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Spirit is individualized as us. Holmes taught that there is a power for good in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it. But to use it rightly, we must first realize what we are not. So what are we not? He says we're not our fears, we're not our conditions, and we're not our past stories. These are the clouds. We are instead the ever-present changeless field of divine mind, the sky. Ernest Holmes describes the law of mind as creative, impersonal, and responsive. More about this in a minute. In the same way, the sky does not resist or cling to any one cloud. We're not bound by the fleeting nature of our experiences. We shape our reality through conscious alignment with the unchanging truth beneath our appearances. When we identify with the cloud, with fear, limitation, separation, we create from that illusion. But when we remember we are the sky, limitless, spacious, eternal, we tap into the creative law and live from the power. The path then is not about attempting to control clouds. It's about remembering the constancy of sky, abiding in our true identity and creating not from our fear or lack, but from the knowing that wholeness is already ours. It's an analogy. Like everything that you try to explain that's not physical becomes an analogy, which is a way of explaining things. It's the same way that a myth describes something. A myth is something most people think a myth is just totally not true. But no, a myth actually is something that is not literally true, but it's got a message of truth behind it. So this analogy of sky, I don't know if it works for me, honestly. I don't know if because I don't need it. But I'm not decrying it. I'm just saying I don't need it. I mean, my belief system is this, that there is one source of all life. And honestly, I believe it's greater than this universe. It has to be because it created the universe. Did it create multiple universes? I'm inclined to believe that it did. But so everything has got to be an expression of this one source. If one source created everything, then everything is an individualized expression of it, whether it's a rock, it's a plant, it's a bird, it's a human being, it's a planet, it's a constellation in the sky, which, galaxies. Everything is an expression of it. And if it is, and you and I are expressions of it, then we possess the ability going through us of that power that Ernest Holmes talks about to change circumstances. Ernest Holmes honestly believed that we could change our circumstances, and by prayer we could change other people's circumstances through holding it in the power of our own mind, not in their mind, but in our mind, because our mind is connected with divine mind, which here is referred to as sky. So Ernest Holmes said there were two aspects of God. One was the aspect of consciousness, which he called love, and the other was the universal subjective, which he called law. And this is what they're talking about here, the universal subjective. So how do we do it? As we mentioned before, thoughts plus feelings equal beliefs. Beliefs released into the divine subjective produce results for us and for others. And really and truly, that's it. And they're saying, if we truly believe this, why would we be afraid of anything? If we truly believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But we're human, we're flawed. And we have to honestly keep reminding ourselves to go back to it, which is why every day I do some prayer work and some quiet time and some breath work and some reading. So there we are. But I'm not preaching. I'm simply saying, look, this is what Science of Mind proposes. We're not trying to change anybody's system of belief, especially their religion. You can be a good Muslim, Christian, Jew, etc., and still practice Science of Mind. And that's what Ernest Holmes believed. That's what he taught. That's what he wanted. You can become a much better person and keep your own existing religion if you need it. So please look out for two things tomorrow. My colleague, Reverend Lisa Ryan, at 9:15-ish Central Time tomorrow morning on Creative Life Spiritual Center's Facebook page. Same Facebook page live. 11 a.m. tomorrow will be our weekly service. And I'll be back tomorrow evening, somewhere around about 5 o'clock. So until next time. Well, let's say this. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Everywhere we are, God is, and all is well. So now, until next time, namaste.